the concern that was raised, Tracy, by Dr. Kalua was the welfare component, which is very key. But in the end, it's the responsibility of the government to look into that, for the KFS not to be mentioned as adversely as it has been in the report by the task force. But then again, how does the government then prevent this becoming an opportunity, a godsend opportunity for example, the illegal people who cut trees illegally and those who have been trading, who have been in that business illegally, as an opportunity, because this literally is going to give them the go-ahead and the green light to do what they want to, and there's no mechanism to mitigate or to regulate that. I mean, how does the government prevent that, even as it seeks to lift the ban?
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's actually a very important thing, and that was one of the things that should have been actually clearly communicated as the ban was being lifted. You know, the way it was said was just, you know what, the ban on logging is now lifted, so let's continue. And I remember immediately a day after the ban, there were several trucks that were seen already that have logged in our forests. So it's really important for the government to make sure that in this communication, they would have actually first come and said, you know, this is our findings, this is what we have done, and this is what we think we should do. Because at the end of the day, as Dr. Kinyanjui has said, the sales of timber will never justify the environmental damage that comes with logging, yeah. It can never justify that. And that is because we are losing so much in terms of water conservation, in terms of even drought. Like you can see in the past 5 years, we've had the harshest drought in Kenya. So it's really important for the government as their responsibility to look towards other alternatives away from our public and community forests. And they're there. Honorable Mushimio has mentioned about the sustainable use of natural resources. It doesn't have to lie in timber itself. There are very many ways that our Kenyan people can earn money, can have job opportunities when it comes to utilizing forest resources. And we have things like honey, mushroom, seeds. That's something that our own indigenous seeds, selling them, instead of us buying seeds, allowing the importation of seeds from Europe, why can't we utilize our own seeds that are here? So it's really important, and I agree that the government should have really thought this through and ensured that everything is clear and considerate before coming to this decision.
Okay, Honorable, you had a point, please proceed.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, because if I look at the environmentalists that are here, these environmentalists are actually protecting their jobs from wherever they are. And I think it is important that we listen to what we say. Just to respond to what he said, the role of Parliament is not to advise the President. And I think you misquoted me when I say, as Parliament committee, we've looked through everything that is required, and so the experts can go and advise the President. So the fact that you're telling people the Parliament is advising the President basically means you could have not listened to what I say. The role of Parliament to legislate, to oversight, and to actually legislate oversight and also do representations of the people. So that is the three roles of Parliament. We know the President advises. And I think I want to ask these people here who are seated to consider that this government have got experts like you, who actually advise the President. And they advise the President based on the fact that we sit down as Parliament and we represent the people in those committees. And in this committee, we want to ensure that we get everything right before we can actually say we are given a green go-ahead as an executive to do what you want to do. You are welcome to the Committee of Environment. And I think we will invite you, because we invite every member of public, we invite every institution that is concerned to be able to shed your light so that we can be able to talk to the executive in behalf of you. Because you might not be able to talk to the cabinet secretary. You can, of course, but if you want to talk to the cabinet secretary through the committee, you can talk to the cabinet secretary of the committee. So we can listen to you. And I want to open the door for you. Two, I did not say that we are the ones that have actually allowed for the excision of 5,000 acres of trees. This was done in 2000. And I think, again, you misquoted me because you say recently. It is not recently. I said 2000. And this was after the agitation of the people of Kenya. The people of Laikipia, for example, Governor Kimemian then requested the government for the lift of this ban. Why was he requesting the government? He was requesting the government because there was an adverse effect on why the ban was staying for long. Because that report that you were also part of, where you say you are a member of that committee, was supposed to be only in force for 90 days. 90 days was not to regrow trees. 90 days was to put structures within KFS. And when it was realized that KFS had not good structures, it was extended up to November 28, another 6 months. So what I'm trying to tell you is, this thing has not been done haphazardly, because what you're trying to tell Kenyans is that the president and the executive and parliament do not reason before they actually allow for this ban to be lifted. In any case, it's not the first ban. In 1999, there was a ban between 1999 and 2012. Did we see a resumption of our forest? The reverse happens. Even now, if you go to our cities, you'll find there's a lot of burning of charcoals. In fact, with the ban, we see a lot of illegalities taking place. The struggle is in Tanzania. The struggle is in Uganda. Every time there is a ban, and that the ban is not structured very well. Because for you, you want just a ban to be there, that we need to have a ban, but you have not even specified what kind of structures are we supposed to put in place before this ban is actually become effective. In any case, with this, I'll tell you, the charcoal burning is still going on. The firewood collection is still going on. The illegal logging is still going on. It doesn't mean that the ban has solved everything. What the president is trying to say is that now we got a KFS that is ready to license properly the people that are going to log. And that the systems are in place so that we can be able to get our revenues and also protect our environment. If we want to continue hiding into the institutions that we are in to say, as long as there's this term ban, the forests are protected. They are not protected. People are in the forest even now, even before the ban is lifted. So let us talk about how are we going to help our forest with or without the ban. What the president is doing is, we are now structured, and KFS, I'll tell you, Tracy, when the president was actually lifting the ban, he did not have to come with all the documents. Visit KFS, you can visit the ministry, and they'll tell you what are the measures that have been put in place now for the ban to take effect, for the lifting to take effect, what are kind of the new licensing rules and regulations that are in place. If you see that, then you can probably appreciate that the president did not just wake up from the dream and say we are lifting the ban. He is, in fact, the first person who instituted this committee, and he cannot be the first person to break the rules that were set by this committee. So he should have looked through it. And I say again, the role of parliament is not to advise the president, but to be able to represent the people and allow the executive to operate effectively.
Allow me just a minute. I think just 1 minute.
Just hang on. Yeah. Allow me to also ask him a follow-up question. Honorable Latoya, when you mentioned the continuation of the illegal logging, which is ongoing, I mean, that's wrong, but it ought not to be compounded by a directive which is likely to compound that problem. Because look, the loggers and their associates within the Kenya Forest Service still are inexistent, and would perhaps use all mechanisms to ensure that this legalization is further an avenue for them to cut down more trees and go beyond even the well-recommended space or how that framework ought to be happening. And to just read you a report by the United Nations Environment, this is a report, and it said between 1991 and 2011, the Mau complex lost about 107,000 hectares, which is almost a quarter of its forest cover. I mean, we are driving towards increasing growing of trees by the government. There's a projection to that effect. Here you have a directive that's likely to even further give the morale to loggers and their associates within KFS. On the flip end, we are losing our forest cover, and at a very fast rate. I mean, where is the balance in all this? How do you address this mutating problem?
I want to state the year where the report was done. Between 2019?
Yes, UNEP report in 2019, yes.
2019 too?
Yes. United Nations Environmental Report, 1991 and 2011.
2011.
Yes.
There was a ban in 1999 to 2012. And that is the time when there was the loss of the Mau. So basically, it tells you what I've been saying. it is not the ban that protects our forest. In fact, when you ban, you actually allow illegalities. And the reason why Mao was actually existent at the time when there was a ban in force, 1999 to 2012, and that is where exactly we lost the Mao. And so basically what I'm trying to tell my colleagues and the Kenyans is that it is not about the ban. It is about the responsibilities of Kenyans and how we want to deal with our forest. Whether the ban is there or the ban is not there, our forests are always at risk. And so what the president is saying is let us legalize it so that we can start dealing with issues in a legal manner. Otherwise, if we want to tell people do not go to the forest, people will still need firewood, people will still need timber, people will still need charcoal, and this will continue. If the ban was actually in effect like they're saying now, we will not see any charcoal in our cities. We will not see any timber or any firewood in our cities. But do we see them? Yes, they are.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Kalwa, you had a point. Please proceed. I'll come to you, Dr. Kiburi.
I want to thank the Member of Parliament for Kacheliba, who is a member of the Committee for Environment, for inviting me or promising to invite so that we can speak to the committee on environment on important issues that they may consider, because I'm sure that there is a lot that they need to know and they keep knowing, and I'm very excited about this because that is what I exist for. I also want to request Mheshimiwa, I am used to decency in my life and the way that we operate. When he says that the environmentalists here are justifying their job, I think it's a bit dishonorable for this team. I exist to do what is good for common good and for God's glory. We are not here, and I'm not here to justify anything or any paymaster. So I think it's not a very decent statement. Thirdly, I want to mention to Mheshimiwa, what you said earlier on is in record. The language of misquoting and quoting is heard elsewhere with politicians. I am not trying to justify anything or to quote or misquote or justify. What you said earlier on is in public domain right now as we sit here. And further, even as you continue to speak, Mheshimiwa, you have actually gone back to what I actually alluded to earlier on, because you say that you looked at it and you have no problem. I'm just paraphrasing, that the committee looked at it and there was no problem at all about it. The issue of the 5,000 hectares that were extinct at a time, you only explained. I didn't say that you authorized that. And when I say you, I mean it is the parliament, because you're saying that it is the parliament looks at this. And I agree that the president may have advisors. And this is what we are speaking to them. I'm part of that government. But I believe that I am by choice. I am not talking from outside. I am talking about what we need to do for common good. Not a matter of just saying things for the sake of saying. When you talk about excision in 1999, I have all those details. I was the whistleblower on Mao, on what happened. And I continue to let you know, with all due respect and knowing that you represent very important people of Kacheliba, there is much more information that I request. And I only requested you to go and read the report. Okay. That is all.
Dr.
Yeah.
He talked about the advice. Though a committee of the National Assembly does not advise the president, was the advice to the president on the lifting of this ban right, in your view?
To lift the ban? Yes. No.
Okay.
No, and I have justified. You know, there is always a second way of looking at things. There is the clearing of the forest and logging, and there is what is the alternative. Tracy has just said it here. The value of the tree standing is invaluable. You can never fault it. There needs to be a team, and I'll be telling the team, the committee on environment at Parliament, practically with things that we have worked on, I have worked on, I have practiced in different places. For example, the Green Africa villages that can be rolled out across the country, launched by the former President Kibaki, that can be able to sort out this. We are talking about communities around these forests. If They were taken through. And the most important of this, Mheshimiwa, with respect, is about public awareness. Let the community know what you're doing. Honey production alone has got a global market that is bottomless. However much honey that you produce, it will give you much more money to the community than even the trees logging. We are talking of that area, and I'm glad Tracy talked about it, collection of seed, what is called the crown picking, that you can collect, working with Carefree, working with Kenya Forest Service, pack and community sell 1 kilo between 1,000 shillings and 3,000 shillings. We are talking of production, and the global market is estimated to be at 12.2 billion. Within the next few years, by 2028. We are talking of the seed market, which is billions. We are talking of growing of mushrooms, which take, by the way, 4 to 6 weeks. A market of more than 50 billion US dollars that is in existence.
Thank you.
And much more, not even, it's more than the amount I'm talking about. There are things that we need to think in a different way. So it is on this basis that I say, let us consider. Let us sit and consider. Let us make the Mwananchi understand why you are doing this. When the report says that there is corruption, when the report says that there is need for systems, and by the way, you wrongly stated that that the report did not give recommendation. You need just read the findings and get to the recommendations. We are now talking about getting drones from France today, when we were talking of having it within 90 days. When the task force was there.
Thank you.
So there is a lot of justification and things that we can explain, and I'm going to prepare a report to present to you, because you have all requested for that, and if there will be no time, I'll send it to you. I have written, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you. Dr. Kinyanjui, this, I mean, talking about, because the ban which was decreed in 2018 came against the backdrop of public outcry in regards to also the destruction of water towers, and especially around the water catchment areas of the Mau forest. And to just look at some statistics here, the forest does support an estimated 6 million Kenyans who depend it for their water. Mau forest now has immense values. For instance, it's a natural water catchment area, a source of water for many in Nairobi, forms the upper catchment of 12 rivers and feeds 5 major lakes, including Lake Victoria, which is the source of River Nile. And the end of that is in Egypt. So you have, technically we're talking about Kenya, the Sudan, South, North, Ethiopia, and Egypt, who depend on this river, which sources from Lake Victoria. And when you have this logging, which might have consequence on the Mau forest, one, was there no understanding around its importance? And then two, what's the mitigation measures of this logging, and when to cut, how to cut, who to cut, and who supervises the cutting of the trees?
Okay, thank you so much for that. And before I go into that, let me just answer a few comments from the Mheshimiwa in that I think we need to, I'm addressing the president, in fact, because the president is one who came up with this pronouncement. And I think what the president needs to do is needs to disconnect himself with the politicians. Politicians are neither scientists. Politicians neither have the technical know-how, the knowledge when it comes to the science behind what we are talking about. They read our reports. They read our scientific findings. They read our publications. And that's what gives them the power to speak what they're speaking. It's the same politicians who talked about trees, that rain does not come from trees, it comes from clouds. It's the same politicians who say that my people are feeling cold, and the cold is because of these trees. Let's cut down these trees so that the area becomes warm. It's the same politicians who are recently saying, let us not protect or maybe respect our riparian waterways, riparian areas. What we should be doing is trying to see how best we can move these waters, these streams of rivers, as opposed to moving the buildings. That's why I'm saying this. The work of parliamentarians is legislation, as he has said, oversight and representation. When you come to this oversight, that's where they fail their business. Oversighting is essentially ensuring that these resources that you are meant to oversight is one of these things you're oversighting, they are used prudently and they are protected. When you're talking about lifting this ban, and as I said earlier, yes, it has an immense economical value. From 2018, the report, when I saw that, was that Kenya used to earn 3.5% of the GDP from forest. So it has a lot of immense value, the forest products. But what they need to remember is that the president needs to stop surrounding himself with what we call yes men and yes women. People who are out there to tell him, not to tell him if something is wrong, if something is right. Parliamentarians are out there for votes. So a parliamentarian cannot pronounce that, let's put a ban on the forest, and the people in his area depend on those forest products for jobs. That will translate to him not being elected next time. So you see, he's already making pronouncements which are what we call coming from somebody who is having vested interest directly or indirectly by getting votes or translating to votes. But we as scientists, we are not coming from any kind of vested interest. The vested interest we have is we are trying to see how best we can reduce one. I was in the task force of the rising water levels, which was constituted by the CS Tobacco. And in that rising water level task force, we went across all these rising water lakes within the Rift Valley. People are dying, people are being submerged, property is being lost, millions and millions. The reasons and some of the outcomes and some of the solutions we put forth was, one, to people being removed from these water catchment areas. Secondly, the reforestation and afforestation of these areas to reduce the soil erosion, because we saw all these waters had sedimentation. And this soil was coming from these areas that were deforested. So the water was not getting enough time to do groundwater recharge. So that was the downfall of forest. And something else about a forest. One tree can give a human being oxygen for almost his entire life. That's how valuable a single tree is. So a tree, when you cut it down, cutting it down is one way. But what you do with it after is the other problem. Once you cut a tree and you translate it into charcoal, it releases carbon, which now leads to more carbon into the atmosphere and increasing the temperatures. So what I'm saying is this, moving forward, let the scientists do their jobs and let the parliamentarians do their jobs. You cannot go to a hospital, and I'm a doctor, and I'm prescribing medicine to a patient that I've examined, and the patient is sick, saying that this patient needs 2 tablets per day. And then the board members, because the parliamentarians are the board members, so the board members come in and say, no, what we need to do is this, let this patient take these tablets. So we are putting the cart in front of the ox and expecting to get solutions. We'll be heading nowhere. In fact, we'll be going to the reverse. So the president needs to look into what are the benefits of this forest. The benefits of the forest translate to bigger things into the ecosystem. Remember, these forests are habitats for animals. They provide food for people. An example is the baobab tree. The baobab tree provides food for so many people and jobs. People have been eating mabuyus and so many other things. They come from that tree. So it has so many things from medicinal value, and you talking about people logging so that you can give them jobs. In fact, we are not protecting our jobs. Okay. It is them protecting their jobs so that they can be voted in. It's not us. So for you, it's the science, not the politics. We should rely on the science, not the politics. Once we rely on the politicians to make rules, let me tell you something. Once you're elected, it does not give you the privilege to become, you're just now becoming a know-how, you know everything. Being elected, the only difference between a politician and me is that he's just elected. But when it comes to the science behind it, I'm telling you the truth. They have nothing to offer us apart from being elected. Nothing more than that. Okay, and for the sake of fairness, there are also politicians and members of the bicameral house who are professionals in their own respects and have understanding and have expertise in their own relevant specifications and the profession with which they are subscribed to. We'll get the feedback shortly. Tracy, coming to you.
because the head of state, there seems to be two languages here. One of the president who, after assuming authority in his first UN address, talked about climate change and its consequences, the need for more cash from the polluters, the big polluters, the Americans, the Chinese, the Indians, the Australians. And there is also the other language of him saying that these climate conferences are inconsequential. For example, that the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow in the UK, the COP27 climate conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, lack teeth, they are purely aspirational mechanisms but no commitment. Here again, Kenya is a country facing the consequences of climate change. I mean, with what language will the head of state again go to the world and the community of nations to get money in order to mitigate the crisis as a result of climate change here in the country? One, of cutting down more trees, or one, to seek the funding because of climate crisis as a result of the big polluters?
Yeah, thank you for that. Definitely there's a lot of double speak when it comes from the government, from President Ruto. Like, of course, outside in the conferences, he seems like someone who's really fighting for climate change, and fighting against climate change. But then when it comes to our own country, we can clearly see there are a lot of issues happening. With the ban on logging, for example, like, there are alternatives, you know, apart from even the sustainable forest use, as Dr. has mentioned. We can look at bamboo. I remember I did some research at Kenya Research Institute, KEFRI, within KFS. And within that, we actually went through how we can look at forest waste products. You know, like, for example, the dead tree leaves to create charcoal in form of briquettes. We looked at how we can use bamboo to create furniture. So there are alternatives when it comes to supplementing the timber and wood needs of the country. I feel like it's important for the government to work hard, instead of working so hard in coming up with these policies and laws that I in fact do know of, Mheshimiwa, like the new entry certificates and exit certificates. They should, and we know that, you know, implementation has been a problem in Kenya. It has been a problem 6 years ago, 20 years ago, and right now it's still a problem. Why can't we change our mindset, change focus, look at how these alternatives can work best for us and, you know, save the planet and conserve our forests at the same time? I feel like our president, given the fact that he's also an environmentalist, he should look at the solutions when it comes to alternatives and leave our forests to be. In fact, in this plantation forest that we have within our public and community forests, what I can advise, they should plant indigenous tree species, and, you know, they should plant indigenous tree species to increase our forest coverage, because we are only at 8%. There are countries within Africa that are at 70%. We are way behind. And we are one of the countries as being seen as championing in climate justice.
We even have the UN Environment Agency here in Nairobi. As its headquarters. Gentlemen and a lady, let's now take a look at the feedback, and then I come to Dr. and Honorable Lotte for your remarks and brief closing remarks to Dr. as well, Tracy. And here's what you're saying on Daybreak. That's the hashtag at Citizen TV Kenya, at Ayub Abdikadir, and at Safin_Acheng. Here's what we're saying. Ambabu Michel K says the lift of the ban on logging that has been for 6 years maybe have made Mek in good faith, but when I saw anger and hatred from the president, as he said, the minister then was foolish in caveats, then I see this as purely political. Brian Chemwa says the president should embrace promoting sustainable and responsible logging practice, i.e. selective logging, forest management plans, reforestation efforts, international agreements, and certifications such as Forest Stewardship Council. Magwas 3 says President William Ruto has been scoring A in international forums on speeches about climate change and environmental protection. He then goes ahead and allows logging in the country, preaching water and drinking wine. Engineer Lazaro says forming forests cover task force and at the same time premature lifting of 6-year logging ban is contradicting the head of state. It's devastating to receive two contradictory statements from the highest office of the land. Sir Nixon Dugure says, and please, as the plan to plant millions of trees is underway, kindly observe the rain pattern. Planting trees during the dry season is just a matter of public relations and obviously a waste of time and money. Ras Bashir Werewan says the lifting of the logging ban is ill-advised. The depletion of already depleted forest resources will have unimaginable negative impact on water catchment areas. You have this from Charlo Ward Boyros. He says the president should look for ways of calming down the opposition before things get out of hand. Chest thumping will not work at the moment. The economy is very bad at the moment. Demonstration is a right and all catered for in the constitution. Okelo Mwalimu says the government's decision to lift logging in public and community forests is likely to turn into double-edged sword. On one end, loggers would say it is a stupendous move, assemble tools and create a few more jobs. On the other hand, indiscriminate logging would be detrimental. This is from ZSK Kenduiwo, says the government is getting priorities and policies wrong. They were preaching planting of trees to mitigate the easing of effects of climate change, and now they are suggesting he means, the logging, it's same case as the high cost of living. This from Keep Ruto underscore says protecting our forests and biodiversity is crucial for a sustainable future. The decision to lift the ban on logging is a step in the wrong direction. We must prioritize conservation efforts, not exploit our precious natural resources. And you have this from India Mogo says we must condemn and refuse hypocrisy when it comes to matters climate change by being seen to be acting to protect our forests. Okay, Mtata says, I'm sorry, my leader, that we have to seek your intervention to protect our forests. Some salvation sought from Okia Mtata. Yes, Daktari, briefly, and then to you, Mheshimiwa, then close remark from Daktari again. Yes, please.
Thank you. The challenges that we have as a country today on economic matters and why it is leading to such confusion, including the current demonstrations, can only be sorted not by the current arrangements that we are having for futures, because we still have to repay. We must put our efforts in exports. The forestry sector, the communities around forests can easily be supported to ensure that they produce a lot of vegetables, which take within 3 to 4 months, and you're ready to export. And this will sort out our life and our economic affairs in this country. We have talked about production of even things like medicinal plants, which are readily available in the forests and can be removed in a way that leaves the tree standing. And it gives this country, the global market is about $200 billion in this process. Let us try and direct our people through walking with them step by step. Allow me to mention the current affairs of the forests. For us to get a 1% forest cover in the country, we need to plant not less than 580 million trees. And for us, on an annual basis, we are depleting 150 million trees for our energy purposes and others. So for us to plant 730, for us to get a 1%, we have to plant 730 million trees.
Thank you.
And therefore, you can imagine how that is. Finally, let me mention this. I think it is something that's very good that has never happened in this country, that our dear president and the government can see the negative things that are being thrown on the table. Nobody has ever had that as a president in this country, that within 1 year, people are saying this is what you need to do, they're demonstrating, they're doing this. It means there is a great opportunity to correct within a very short term. And I dare say this as I finish. Once the presidency chooses to become a one-term leadership, Kenyans will give them automatically the second term. Because when you have decided to become...
It's dependent.
It's dependent because you are going to do the right thing. You are going to make the hard decisions, not based on politics. you're going to make hard decisions based on everything that needs to be done for common good.
Okay.
I advise this with all humility, knowing that we can make a change in this country.
Thank you.
Demonstrations are not going to help us in the best way possible, that but they are good that we are getting the information that needs to be applied.
Thank you, Dr. But to lay an emphasis, there's no automatic here. It's the people.
Well, you can remove the word automatic.
Okay.
I am only saying when you do good and people see you, you're definitely going to, they are going to reward you.
Okay.
That is what I mean.
Yes, the dictate of a democracy is that the people accord the mandate to whosoever they wish.
Exactly.
That's the power they have.
And it depends on what they have done and their track record. That is exactly what I mean.
The automatic aspect here.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Democracy does dictate that when we head to the ballot, and it's very predictive that after every 5 years, after the 5-year cycle, the 2nd August of every Tuesday, we head to the ballot. We know it's the people of Kenya who accord that mandate.
You're a decent guy.
Thank you. Yes,
as I appreciate the panelists here, I want to say a good vehicle has got a brake and an acceleration pad. There's no vehicle that accelerates without braking, and there's no vehicle that brakes without accelerating. What I'm saying is that the president, in his own thinking and wisdom, and the advisors that are technical, just tell all my panelists here, politicians, like you put right, they are also those that are technical, and they are actually experts within their field, despite the fact that they are also elected. But then the president does not operate. Politicians are not, and I want to repeat again, politicians, parliamentarians are not the advisors of the president. The president has got technical advisors like yourself, and I appreciate the fact that you've also sat in some of these committees to be able to advise the president. And so this advice is not coming from politicians, and I want that corrected. This advice is coming from technical people as yourself. Those are the ones that are surrounding the presidents, and they are technically advised to do what they are. And sometimes you sit in forums with them.
Thank you.
So in a vehicle that has got an accelerator and a brake, the president has technically advised that we need to plant 15 billion trees by by the next 10 years. Basically meaning the president is accelerating to ensure that our environment is protected by having us more trees. But at the same time, the president is advising that for the trees that are overgrown, the trees that do not have any value any longer,
thank you,
because they will die and release carbon into the environment. Let us use that. And so for me, I want to say, we all agree with one thing. We should not be falsifying the president, even when he knows that a vehicle requires a brake and an accelerator. There's an accelerator where we are all planting 15 billion trees. But there is also the brake that we need to environmentally, technically, excise trees that are mature to be used. Otherwise, then there is no country, like I asked before, that does not utilize natural resources. The president has not given a green light for everybody to go and cut trees.
Thank you.
It is technically advised cutting of trees for the economic benefit of this country.
Thank you. Much appreciated. 30 seconds, Tracy.
So I just want to finish by saying it took us 6 years for forest cover to increase from 5% to 8% amidst this climate crisis. How many years is the climate crisis going to wait for us to plant new trees, for them to get mature, so that we can increase our forest coverage?
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Ali.
Yeah, mine is simple. First of all, let me clarify one statement the Mheshimiwa said, is that a tree, once a tree dies, it does not release carbon. It only releases carbon when it is burnt or done something else with it. Once it is cut and it lays down there, it stores carbon within it. So carbon is not released once it dies. Secondly, is that the works of parliamentarians is legislation. So apart from you saying that you don't advise the president, these are laws that pass through you to him. So you have the solemn duty to either put away this law, because it's a law, it will come through you. So once you amend it and you put the numbers, it's yes, it will go through to him for signing. So you're part of that conveyor belt. Secondly, you have said you are technical people within the committee. In fact, I would love to see the credentials of those people who are working in that committee. For your case, I have seen you have done economics and conflict, which is okay. That one does not relate to anything with the environment. That's what I'm saying. You might be having a degree or education, but the wrong one for that job. It's like taking a mechanic to a hospital. It can't work. That's why I'm saying, yes, you're all educated, but you're putting the wrong people for the wrong job. And that one is what pains me a lot, because the sentiments you parliamentarians are saying, it goes outside there like it is the word of truth. It is not. We are the authoritarians of this area. We have been eating, drinking, and sleeping on these kinds of jobs every day, day in, day out. So having an education is not a problem, but is that education correct for that career that you are doing?
Thank you.
So that environmental committee should be disbanded, and we should be vetting them past their papers. If you have not done anything to the environment, and we should be doing the vetting. So I think we are doing everything the wrong way.
Allow me.
At the end of the day, the Environment and the Natural Resources Committee of the National Assembly must have members. You have to populate that.
It should have members, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay, Honorable, hang on. How many members are you in that committee?
We have 15 members.
15 members? Yes. So at least then you are telling the Kenyan people to elect around 20 people environmentalists.
I hope those 15, they have done something on environment. If not, I think they have done something to do the political, something on government, something which is totally wrong.
Well, the point is,
let's be fair here.
To be fair to the honourable lawmakers is that in the end, for Parliament to, because Parliament works through committees.
Yes.
For Parliament to work, the committee must have membership. And you have to populate those empty spaces so that members are present. So your proposal is that there should be vetting mechanism. But I suppose you have a technical committee who are experts in that field, who advise you before they come up with recommendations and reports.
We've got clerks, we've got technical advisors that are actually in this particular field, in fact, probably more technical than them. Those are the ones that actually bring those things to Parliament. So what parliamentarians do is basically to give oversight. So they advise properly before they make any decision. In any case, like what he says, that we are conveyor belt, we are not. The technical advisors, like them, will bring these policies to Parliament. And we will look through it. We'll take it to the public, for the public to give their inputs. And the reason why I actually asked them to come to the committee and give their inputs, it is through those inputs that we see whether the public accepts it or not before we actually pass it. We do not pass anything that has not gone through the process. So whether we are technical or not, we've got technical advisors that could be more technical.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Allow me to mention this.
Those technical advisors should be fired.
Thank you.
That's the key. They should be fired. They're doing the wrong job.
Thank you.
Okay, let's be fair that we must respect every committee of Parliament. They have a system of gathering information, and we have an opportunity again to go and represent whatever we have.
Thank you.
And I'm sure my brother will also join me. It's only he's being passionate about this, and that is allowed.
And why I raise that matter is because we have to be factual on this show or any other of the Royal Media Services, because the profession must be driven by facts, must be driven by substantial evidence and research. Your time is all appreciated. Dr. Kinyanjui Koimburi, agriculture and climate change scientist, your time is all appreciated. Dr. Kalua is a green and eco-entrepreneur and an environmental champion. Thank you for your time. Tracy Machithi is the community manager, Green Space Africa, and we had the pleasure to host the lawmaker representing Kacheliba constituency, who as well is a member of the Parliamentary Environment and Natural Resources Committee. And your time is all appreciated. Of course, among the agenda of the day includes the meeting happening at State House at the moment between President William Ruto and his visiting Iranian counterpart, Ibrahim Raisi, who was received at State House and after a gun salute also inspected a guard of honor. He becomes the first sitting Iranian president to visit the continent after his predecessors failed to do so, Hassan Rouhani and Ahmadinejad. Expected topics include areas of collaborations, including defense, security and foreign relations. And also today is protest day that the Azimio One Kenya coalition political party called for following last Friday's Saba outcome at the Kamukunji grounds. The police say the gathering is not allowed and that the central business district will be a no-go zone. Our reporters are on ground and they will be giving you an upbeat assessment of how the day will unfold. Up next is Safin Achieng Ouma with health and lifestyle. She'll be talking about diabetes, and we'll see you on Friday here on the broadcast at the same time. Thanks for watching. Good morning. Thanks, Dr.